Welcome back to Tales from the PowerAge. How you doing, guys? You okay?
Hello, everyone.
Yep, hello.
They're looking well. Okay, it's great. And I'd just like to say before we kick off, it's nice to have some sunshine. After months of rain, it's now sunny. So whilst we're on the subject of sunshine, let's talk about a sunshiny record from the late 70s. And this, of course, is Judas Priest's Stained Glass, which ironically I thought was stained glass for about 20 years. So I don't know why, but I just did. But it's one of those things. So this is part of our classic albums from the PowerAge. So we're going to be doing a whole series of these. And this is what we believe to be one of the classic albums, particularly from this classic British heavy metal band, Judas Priest. So let's get into Judas Priest and Stained Glass. So if we go to this slide, Gav, do you want to talk about some of the press ads that came out prior to the album release?
Yeah, we always love a press ad. It takes you back to when you were a kid, or in this case, very young, believe it or not, people. I think the one on the left is American. I think that's probably a trade ad, something like Music Week or something like that, where it tells the industry what's going on. And I think the one on the right is Sounds or Melody Maker or something like that. So really kind of introducing Priest's new album. In those days, they came along at least every year, but this was a special year, as we'll talk about later. And this was the first of a couple of brilliant albums that came out around this time, and followed up by a live album very quickly afterwards.
And just for everyone watching, Gab, what year did this come out, this album?
78.
78. So I'm looking at the dates on the right-hand side, which would have been the UK advert. And you've got Dunstable, Hammersmith. So Hammersmith Odeon is way bigger than Dunstable, by the way. It holds 85,000. Birmingham Odeon, and then Middlesbrough Town Hall. Was that? I'm just wondering, that date in February, was that? I'm just looking at some old tickets. Was that supporting AC/DC?
Hey, it could have been. Yeah. Would that be the PowerAge tour?
Yeah, or if you want blood, probably the PowerAge tour, I'm guessing. I've got a ticket from Birmingham, but that was December, so maybe not.
Well, that would have been supporting the other album that came out that year.
Yeah, well, all I'm saying is if that was their headline show, I mean, that's a pretty big feat at the time to be headlining a 5,000 capacity arena.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I just popped these in because they're so cool, aren't they? You know, they were starting to really get a name for themselves over there, culminating in the live album, which came out the following year, Unleashed in the East. But I love all this. I love the look that they had at the time.
It's a great photo, isn't it? As you look at it on the left of the band. So
it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Really good.
One of the major differences between this album and the next one that came out the same year is the image is really starting to develop. This makes them look better than most photos of this era, where they're moving away from kind of the silks and the kind of everybody wears what the hell they want, to a much more defined leather and studs image that we know and love them for today. It really started this year. In fact, when we saw them being interviewed, which is available on our channel, just before this recent tour, Rob basically credited KK with the leather and the basically everybody should wear the same style of stuff. You know, obviously Rob has previously mentioned that he went to Soho and went to some dubious shops and bought lots of leather and studs and whips and chains, and that's where he got his look from. They had the sound, but they didn't have the look. And in this year, the look really developed, and it's part of what, if you think of a heavy metal band, that's what you think of. And
Rob's got a look of Star Trek about him in that photo. Yeah, I don't know if that's me or not.
He looks a bit like Gary Newman.
He does, yeah, he does, doesn't he? Well,
it looks like they're going to be beamed up as well.
I was thinking almost Graham Bonnet-esque. Do you know what I mean? The slightly different with the short hair and the
It was ballsy at the time not to have long hair as a singer.
Yeah,
absolutely, yeah.
So
he did have long hair in the early 70s, didn't he? When he gave it up,
and then he got a kind of a longer bob for 1980 British Steel, and then dropped it again. Anyway, to the main feature. Yeah, so Stained Glass, this was the first time they used this kind of imagery. They had the same guy, I think it was a record label dude, who was in control of their artwork from now for the next 2 or 3 or more albums. And this is a great look, futuristic. It took us away from the crying angels and the tombstones and chapels of the previous look. And Jammy's got a fact about the logo.
Well, just the fact that was debuting the iconic, that Judas Priest.
Yeah.
That Judas Priest logo. I didn't realise.
Yeah, you kind of forget that that's the first time we've seen this.
Having a look.
Yeah.
So, and you think, wow. So this is the thing with these, covering some of these records. We're covering this. It's set 1978. Now, we were whippersnappers, clearly. Look at us. But Priest played. Gav got the march on us in Priest because that was the first sort of band he went to see, sort of solo type of thing. I mean, after the Kiss, it was the first sort of in '83. In '83, Gav went along, got to see them at Hammersmith Odeon back in. I want to say 13th of December. Why I would remember a gig of yours? I think it's because it was 10 days after I went to see Y&T in 1983. I got Y&T, you got Judas Priest, and off we went. But Priest played a big part in my life, because I had older brothers, as did Gav. Priest was very much, prevalent.
My brother's favourite band, basically.
Yeah, and same as mine.
So yeah, I knew about this at the time. I would have said, probably, or close to it. And being interested in drumming, even at that young age, 7, 8, 9, whatever we were at the time. Les Binks just blew my brains out with how amazing he was, and obviously the debut track, which we'll talk about later, just killed me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I already knew about this band, and hence I was so young when I got to see Defenders of the Faith tour at Hammy, as you said. I've still got.
Is that your copy, Gav?
No, it's just taken off the internet. But this is
promo copy.
This is my copy. This is the original cassette of the time, and then they later reissued it as part of the series. The thing where all the images line up on the spine with a couple of extra tracks. So, and obviously got the vinyl. I think everybody's got the vinyl, haven't they?
Yeah, we've all got that.
It was also part of a box set, so I've got the little individual fella here. Yeah, it was also part of a vinyl box set, actually. While we're on the subject,
did you get that, Gab?
Yeah, the collector.
Did you get that?
I couldn't resist that. Yeah, it's brilliant. So this only had 3 CBS albums in it. So it had Sin After Sin, Stained Glass, and Killing Machine. So,
okay, good. So there's the inner cover, which a jam.
Talking about the image change. Look at him in that picture compared to the Japanese one. Rob's got a tie on.
Yeah, this is kind of strange because there appears to be 2 inners. Because I've got that side. But what have you boys got for the other side? I've got that.
Oh,
I've got the one on the left.
You've got the red one.
Hey.
Yeah, I've got that.
Yeah, I've got the one on the left as well.
Right, I need to buy another copy then. That's random.
Okay.
What have you got?
This is out of the box set. So I don't know if this was a later edition or.
Oh,
yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's out of the box set, so it's it's not late. It's 79, 80, maybe 79. Yeah, interesting. I need to go and buy that one then, don't I?
Of course you do.
Of course I do.
Okay, let's go to the next slide, which is the
Sheet.
lovable merch sheet. So
Sheet.
that looks like Gary Davis there from Radio 1 posing.
Does a bit, yeah.
Doesn't it? Anyway. So what were the prices for your merch then, Gav?
Oh, I couldn't tell you.
No.
Can anybody see?
I think it was £4 for a t-shirt and £8 for a sweatshirt, wasn't it?
Wow,
There you go. Sounds about right. But
cheaper than a pint of beer now. Or if you went to Wembley Arena, you could buy 4 t-shirts for the same price as a double Jack Daniels and Coke. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
Come on, Wembley, sort it out. Anyway,
he's still bitter.
Shocking.
Right. So yeah, we come to the track listing, and the aforementioned Exciter, starting with an amazing double bass drum solo from our hero Les Binks, and a kind of a proto thrash song. I hadn't heard anything this fast in my youth at the time, and it's such a brilliant song. It's so full of melody. It's so fast and aggressive, and the vocals are off the scale. I mean, you won't get a better opener to an album than Exciter.
Do you know what, Gav?
No,
I always felt, particularly Exciter was, and there are various tracks on this album that are quite reminiscent of Queen or early Queen.
Right.
So you think Stone Cold Crazy, that's quite a fast tune as well, isn't it? Fast track. It's not too dissimilar, I think, in the way that, particularly with a vocal range as well. I often found those couple of albums in and around that time, there was a real marry up of Queen. Probably, maybe that's why you like them so much subconsciously. Maybe you don't realise that, but if you listen to it with that in mind, there is a real link, I think, between the two. Not wholly, but.
And you get the new drummer, Show Us What You Can Do on the first song with a drum solo, reminiscent of Painkiller, Scott Travis.
Yeah.
I mean, interestingly, another band chose like 5 years ago to open their album with a song called Exciter. Anyone?
Kiss.
Yeah.
Look it up. Yeah. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know, that's what made me think.
I know which one I prefer.
Dill's got his Kiss t-shirt on, and I just thought,
it's pretty good, but it's not as good as this one.
Sorry, go
No,
on.
they're both good songs. They're both good songs.
Yeah.
Okay, good. White Heat, Red Hot, Gav?
Oh, classic. These. I mean, I'm not going to slag off any of these, to be honest. They're all good, but they're very individually different as well.
Yeah.
With this song, this gave me a touch when I was doing a bit of revision. I was checking it out, and the notes I made, it has a touch of the slow down rock and roller in the verses. This album,
That's exactly what I thought. That song is reminiscent of a lot of the earlier stuff they'd done.
Yeah, this album for me, there's some songs that are the new. This for me straddles the 70s heavy metal thing, whereas they said that there was heavy metal early in the 70s, and I don't think of that as heavy metal. It's just a heavier sounding songs with guitars that weren't still fully distorted like we got into in the early 80s. There's quite a crossover. This album for me,
there's very little distortion on the guitars all over this album.
It's
very little.
Quite a lush production, isn't it?
Yeah,
exactly. And that's what I think. One of the reasons why we wanted to cover this, because I think it really does. It's a real bridge between the 70s and what we were going to see coming through in the 80s. And this is one of those songs that just hark back. This could have been on a rock and roller on the album, rather than on the newer ones. Just that grabbed me, especially in the verses. So I thought this was really interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good observation.
Better By You, Better Than Me became infamous 12 years later, not so much in the time, but any thoughts on that track on the album? We'll touch on that a little bit later on around.
I think it was recorded with a different producer after the rest of the album. They wanted to put something a little bit more commercial on there.
Yeah, that's right. It was. Yeah, they did the rest of the album, and then I think the CBS wanted a hit, so they suggested a cover version.
Yeah, they thought there wasn't anything commercial enough on here for them to work with. Basically,
they were right as well with how
they insisted on getting this on there. But when I was listening to it again, for me, the bass line, I found the bass playing. I was going to refer to you on this because you're the bass player in amongst us. The bass playing, I actually noticed it, and I thought it sounded really good. I never noticed bass playing. So what Mr. Hill was doing,
the whole production on this, you can hear the bass clearly in every song. It's really good,
and it's not just, and he's actually playing like interesting and
absolutely.
The bass line follows the guitar, and they're just including it properly. And that was very 70s for me. Dill, your sort of, more your 70s vibe that you're into. That very much that bass that follows the guitars. Again, because I suppose the production, because there's less distortion, you can actually hear. You can pick out each of them.
Definitely.
And you needed the bass to fill in those gaps. Otherwise, it would be quite, thin, wouldn't it? I guess. We
kind of the whole band kind of simplified and solidified their approach later on with British Steel and stuff like that, and got away from all of this kind of fancy stuff. So it's probably at that point Ian decided to go a bit more straight with his playing.
Yes.
But the same with the drumming. You know, they switched to a very simple drummer, Dave Holland, around that time too. You know, maybe it was organic, maybe it was planned, but it was actually Chipping Norton Studios, which is not a million miles from here.
That's right. Yeah.
And James Guthrie, who's done loads of stuff, including Pink Floyd, did better than me.
We'll move on to the next track, which was Stained Glass. Any comments around that guy? Obviously, the title track.
It's in my top 5 Judas Priest songs of all time.
Wow,
absolutely brilliant track. There's nothing bad about this song. Rob's vocals in this are just off the scale. There's a brilliant guitar solo in it. Well, there's actually 2 brilliant guitar solos in it. And it just chops and changes. And Rob does his, I don't know how to describe it, the way he does his stuff where he starts spitting out words all over and over and over and over again. And they're all rhyming, and it's absolutely fantastic. Like whipping, stripping, and all this sort of stuff. It's absolutely fantastic.
That's a shock.
Brilliant. Well, yeah, there you go. And then Invader, Gav.
Yeah, Gappy pointed this out. I think it's Invader.
It is.
There's an homage to it on the new Saxon album, isn't there?
Yeah,
the
exact same beginning to it. It's brilliant.
It sounds exactly the same, and that can't be a coincidence.
No, it's definitely hard back to that. It's definitely a nod to the Priest, that one.
Yeah. Same subject matter as
Another brilliant guitar solo, really melodic guitar solo in it, and the actual subject matter of obviously Aliens is really well covered. He does a brilliant job with the lyrics. Yeah,
but the fact that's the last song on side 1. For me, it's quite a boppy. It's quite a boppy, accessible, if anything, I'd say. Quite a boppy tune. It's quite
absolutely,
good way, I think. Good way to start. Well, back in the day, you'd always have 2 sides to an album, and it'd all be thought out properly. A really good way to end a first side to make you want to put a second side on.
Brilliant. Okay, so we'll go to side 2, and if you're thinking about, just look at the names of those tracks in side 2, and if you're thinking about having a heavy metal album, Saints in Hell, Savage, Beyond the Realms of Death, Heroes, and I mean, look, they were paving the way. This sort of stuff and these types of song titles weren't really readily available at the time. So if you think about actually what they were doing, it was quite groundbreaking at the time, right? So let's go to Saints in Hell first. So, Jam, anything you want to cover on that?
Well, yeah, when I was listening to this, I refer to my notes. I put Stormy Drag. I said it's got a great break, but sounds great with a Sinner-esque. I put Sinner-esque reverb vocal. And I just think
it's a real headbanger, that song.
Live, I put live, it would have just sounded immense. It would have been so good live.
And it did. About 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I was thinking back then, but then when we and again, I think you already covered off. You already said, but yeah, if you look at our archive, you'll see we did a Tour Talk special on Priest, and so the vocal still to be putting it out now. However many years ago this was done, it sounds brilliant on it, and it's just brilliant. I can't believe how that stood the test of time. But yeah, Sinner-esque, really good.
Quite a strange one to pull out to play as well, isn't it? It's not.
Yeah, it is.
It's a real deep cut.
Yeah, fair play to him. Brilliant.
Yeah, it meant totally, especially when you've seen Priest.
I would have preferred Stained Glass, but it did well. It was good.
Okay, the next tune is Savage.
Yeah, that's kind of lyrically talking about indigenous people, I think, isn't it?
Yes, the lyrics are absolutely brilliant.
It's very clever.
Brilliant job.
Who's the savage?
Yeah, it's modern man. Yeah, it's
so
far before its time.
Yeah,
it's a great track.
Kind of similar to the Run to the Hills style-y as far as taking the other side of the
underdog. Taking the view of the underdog. Yeah. Okay, good. And then Beyond the Realms of Death,
which has to be in the top 5 best Priest songs ever.
Again, without a doubt.
It's a classic.
Yeah, and this one, the unique thing about this one is it's Les Binks' writing credit.
Yeah, got a writing credit for this one.
He came up with the riff, apparently. If I remember correctly from what I've heard, he turned the guitar upside down, left-handed, and just plucked these out, and they went, "What's that?" And they just built on his original random chord structure. And obviously Rob took it to another level, and the guitar solos, I mean, especially Glenn's in the middle there, singing, you know, you can sing that solo and it's so brilliant. And on the live version that should have been on Unleashed in the East, but was on a single that came with it, when he finishes the solo and he screams out of it and the crowd cheer after the solo, it's spine tingling stuff.
So
and then you love the other solo, don't you, Gaps? The KK
Yeah,
solo.
I really like when it goes metal at the end. KK solos is probably one of KK's best solos of all time. It's fantastic. Both solos in that song are just, like you say, spine tingling. But like you say about the Glenn, when he ends on that note and he keeps it going forever.
Yeah, and then just goes at the end.
Yeah,
it's brilliant.
Love it. Lyrically, that song is well, it's unparalleled. Really, it's a brilliant subject matter, and Rob covers it absolutely superbly.
The drumming's sublime as well. It's so nuanced and dynamic. You know, it's not ham-fisted at all, especially the live version. It's just bloody brilliant.
We famously, I mean, beyond the realms. So I know we're harping on about this song, but it warrants it because it is. I hate ballads. This isn't a ballad in any way, shape, or form. This is such a piece of music. I always thought it was on Unleashed in the East. When I was a kid, obviously, my brothers had the records. This and the live version. So was it on the cassette as a special? Because
I've definitely heard the live version that Gav's talking about. I haven't got the single that he's talking about, but I've definitely heard it.
It's not on my Unleashed in the East, but I think it was around at that time, and I think it must have been on a cassette. It was on a version of it.
I think it might be.
I think it was the cassette.
It was on. I think it was on the 7-inch that came with it. The initial copies came with a 7-inch that had 3 songs. It was that, and then it obviously is on the CD re-release as part of the series.
Exactly.
But yeah, it could have been on the cassette as well. I mean, I can check. I've got it.
Yeah, when you've subscribed, go and have a listen. It's ridiculous.
Almost 7 minutes as well. So pushing the boundaries of prog.
Jam, you're 100% correct, my friend.
Well done, mate. Yeah, I knew I'd heard it.
But as I said, that's it. But it's that is it, but it's hauntingly amazing, and I can't put into words enough how special that song is, and Mr. Binks to have been involved in that song.
Yeah,
you know, you hang your sticks up after that and say, okay, my work in creating music is done. Because thank you. Well done, Priest.
We might have said that to him, to be fair. Anyway, let's move on from Layers and Beyond the Realms of Death. The final track on the album, Hero's End. So a fitting Hero's End to a classic album?
Definitely. Yeah, so this is a similar theme to You Don't Have to Be Old to Be Wise. Yeah, I guess. You know, it's just Rob kind of exploring what makes a hero or what makes someone, respected or revered. So
he still does that now, Gav, doesn't he? With the Invisible Shield, which is about superheroes. So he's still very much into that stuff even today.
It all, back to front, classic, stone cold classic. And just because we're doing this Priest album, everyone, doesn't mean to say we're not going to do another one later. It's we just wanted to pick out some classics and maybe some not so obvious ones. So other ones will follow. Okay. If you like it, let us know.
Cool. When you've got a band like Priest or Saxon or just generally amazing bands, how on earth we can pick one classic album? And as you say, Gav, we wanted to pick the one that for us made a big difference where they were going to. And this provides one hell of a stepping stone and quite some amazing highlights to it.
Okay, cool. We'll cover the mega bands as well, like AC/DC as well. So don't worry, it won't be just the middle ones. So some singles: UK, Germany, Japan.
Yeah, this is just very quick. That we only had one single anywhere. So Brits didn't get a cover. The Germans and the Japanese did. Again, the Japanese sleeve looks brilliant. I don't know why we couldn't have had that over here. Cheapskates, CBS. But the B-side was Invader. So there we go. Actually, another thing that we've mentioned in previous pods, this was recorded and mixed partially at Trident Studios, which was opposite Shades in St Anne's Court.
Yeah, which is amazing.
We talk about Shades a lot because it had a big part of our youth. It was a record shop in London. we used to frequent quite a bit.
Down the stairs.
Down the stairs, but yeah, Trident's opposite where the stairs were, and it's where Queen. So there's another Queen Priest crossover there, same bloody studio.
Okay, so let's move on to the well. We talked about this single, and this 12 years later became
Those hairstyles.
a much bigger story than it was in 1978. So you can see Rob's dismay with his head in his hands, and look, for those of you that weren't around at that time, those sort of mid to late 80s with the PMRC, I think they were called as well, weren't there? There was a whole bunch of stuff which was, massively and anti-rock, anti-heavy metal in particular, and there was a real headwind of negativity against metal and rock because they felt the American conservative, main groups thought that this, and the church groups probably felt that this was corrupting the youth and the kids. And do you know what? When you look at what's out there today, this is just so lame in comparison, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable. So, Gav, do you maybe just want to give a bit of background around this, and then if the other guys can chip in as well, and we'll just talk through, because we all remember this, right? I actually thought it was earlier than 1990.
Yeah, so did I. Yeah, I remember being at the record company at the time this was happening, and quite opposite to what you'd imagine a record company would do. They re-released the album, they re-released the single. It's like, like rubbing salt in it. But essentially, two kids in the States that had a kind of troubled upbringing, had issues of their own, decided to have a suicide pact, and they said that it was Better By You, Better Than Me that they were listening to when they decided to kill each other. One of the lads sadly died, the other one survived, and then the court case, it was Judas Priest's fault rather than any other factor. So it was essentially then the record industry, art, defending itself, freedom of speech against people potentially doing crazy things and blaming the music. So it cost CBS a fortune to defend. Thankfully, they finally prevailed, and it was actually Rob going up. It was backward masking, backward messaging.
Yeah.
They said if you played the record backwards, you could hear "Do It" and "Shoot," and Ozzy had the same thing, I think, as well.
Well, I was just going to say that there were a few bands that had a similar issue, hadn't they? Ozzy.
Yeah. So the thing that finally swung it, I think, was Rob had gone away back to his hotel one night during the trial and played the record backwards and come up with a bunch of phrases that he then told the court that they could hear, and ridiculous phrases about peppermints and things like that, and everyone could hear it. You could hear these stupid phrases that Rob suggested, which basically completely debunked the whole "shoot it" and anything else you thought you could hear, because you can hear anything if you turn records backwards. And I think the manager had something to say as well.
Yeah, Jan, I think you've got a bit around that.
Yeah, well, when I was having a look, you wonder, you see different things. You see different things on that internet. But apparently, he was quoted as saying, if we were going to put any sort of sublimic messages in, it would be more around the buy at least 7 copies of this album. A typical manager. A typical manager throwaway comment to say, because this isn't going to benefit anyone. Again, just showing it up for what it was. But what a good job that CBS. Priest, they spent a lot of time in, I don't know the exact time scale, but this was going on it was a long going thing. And they had to, as we've got pictures there, they had to go into court and actually be in court. And you see Rob, and I understand any court case, it takes its strain. But I remember seeing clips of Rob singing in court, and he'd sing and he was showing his style of singing, how he would, at the end of a note, he'd go, and he'd, just screaming, because heavy metal.
I just remembered that as well, because he does a little line at the end, and the judge says, "Is that usual? Is that usual for singers to do?" And Rob said Elvis Presley made a career out of it.
Yeah. And I think it did take a toll on them at a time when they just wanted to make music. But thankfully CBS did, because again, like with Ozzy, Suicide Solution, there's loads of different songs, and these guys in America, they're trying to make a big deal of different things to try and stop people having the freedom to write and record and make music that would fill young people or any people with joy and make it a joyous thing. If they'd have been successful in any of these, to then have any of our rock artists not be able to, for instance, Ronnie James Dio, not to be able, all the different things that you couldn't have ever had if you had to be careful of what you said. No, ridiculous.
Yeah.
Gav,
It's really great that Priest really took the bull by the horns and dealt with it. So fair play, Judas Priest.
Gav, you said earlier that one of the guys actually survived.
That's right. He survived for a few years, I think, and then died of a drug overdose.
Right. So it's just in the press ad there. It said the family's charge led to the death of 2 youths. So it makes it sound like the suicide pact was a success, so to speak.
Right. I think one of them survived for a bit. I mean, obviously, if anyone's interested in the finer points, there's plenty of documentaries and tons on the internet about this particular matter. So yeah, don't necessarily follow what we're saying. Do your research. It's only because it pertinent to a song that was on the album randomly, so many years later.
Yeah.
12 years later.
Yeah, the other irony that "Race with the Devil" was muted as a song that the record company wanted on the Stained Glass album, and it didn't make it on there. Whereas that would have been a lot more demonic sounding than "Race with the Devil," which, as Gavin and I were talking about, later covered by
Girls' School.
Girls' School.
Yeah.
If it's the same song, yeah.
Yeah, same song.
Yeah.
First song on the album, I think.
So yeah, interesting.
Okay. Cool. So this was 12 years later. The band got through it. Pretty traumatic for them. I think they may have mentioned some of this at the interview a couple of weeks ago. So difficult times for the band and many of the artists in and around that time as well. So after Stained Glass, the next album was Killing Machine.
After this court case, they came back fighting with a very angry and very aggressive album named Painkiller. But yeah, back to 78, just the same as Saxon came out with 2 brilliant albums, and Kiss came out with some good albums in the same year. Not 78, but in 1 year. We have Killing Machine, which our American cousins called Hellbent for Leather, which is another classic. And as you can see, to our point earlier on, starts to have the studied look coming in as well.
Okay, excellent. Right, so that's Stained Glass. That's a classic album from Judas Priest. I hope you've enjoyed that. We certainly enjoyed remembering back to that brilliant album. You can check out some excellent videos of Judas Priest at a recent show at Wembley Arena with Saxon. So we've got various videos of them on our live channel, so check it out. And it was so, do you know what? It was so humbling to see Glenn Tipton come out and do a couple of tracks at the end as well. So well done, Glenn. You rock, man. So that's brilliant. We thought you were awesome. And check those videos out. So we've got Living After Midnight on there. And we've also got Metal Gods as well, where he comes out to the stage. So if you want to find out a little bit more about us, we're on Facebook on Tales from the PowerAge. You can find us on X, formerly Twitter, on Tales from the PowerAge at TTFTPR, or online at www.talesfromthepowerage.com. If you wanted some merchandise, like a couple of our good friends at Judas Priest managed to pick up a couple of very rare pin badges from us. You might be able to buy them online. Get them while you can, because they're going like hotcakes. Anyway, on that bombshell, hope you enjoyed it. See you later, guys. Cheers.
Cheers.
See you later, people.
Bye.